practice. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, I'll wait for the slide to come up. Peter?
Yep, sorry, I had to pause.
For those of you who aren't familiar with us, I'm going to give a little background of who Microdesk is, and we're an Autodesk Gold, Oracle, and Google partner. We provide technology training and consulting solutions for the AEC industry. We have 12 offices located throughout the East and West Coast with a staff of over 90 consulting and technical specialists. Over the next hour, we'll take a closer look at how we are practically drowning in data these days. Some of the biggest challenges for today's design teams are how effectively you will manage all their projects and data and have the ability to access the most current information whenever and wherever you are. So here, we'll take a look at some tools that are available, including Autodesk Buzzsaw, Vault, and new Autodesk Cloud, that enables designers and manufacturers to have all their project information at their fingertips throughout the project lifecycle. Presenting today's session is Microdesk Solution Specialist, Peter Marchese. Here at Microdesk, Peter works with national architecture firms implementing Revit. He specializes in custom training and content creation and leads firms through the process of creating standards and workflows based on building information modeling technology. I'm going to go over some logistics before we begin. In order to minimize any background distractions, you're all on mute for the duration of the session. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the question area of the webinar toolbar to the right of your screen. Peter will address as many questions as he can at the end of the presentation. And if we run out of time, we'll be sure to provide you with our contact information so you can follow up with us. And now I'll turn it over to Peter.
All right, thank you everybody for showing up. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. So today what we're going to be doing is going over some of the different collaboration tools and focusing mostly on Autodesk's cloud services that they're pushing. So in some ways, you know, cloud is the new green. So the last couple of years seems to be each year had one focus in terms of what's the buzzword for the year. So not too long ago it was BIM. Now, for the most part, everybody has a good understanding of BIM. The last year it was green. Everything has going green. So we're figuring out, okay, how can we take our BIM and use it to be green? Now, with more and more people utilizing the BIM software, what we're looking at is taking that and sharing that content. And because the files are getting larger, people are looking to do more with the same amount of information they already had, and in many cases with a lot more information than they used to have. We're trying to figure out how we can share this content. And it's not like an old AutoCAD file where it was just 1 megabyte. Some of these projects are very, very large. So what we're starting to look at is ways that we can collaborate over long distances with large amounts of data and make sure that everybody is consistent and up to date. Now, in terms of Autodesk's cloud strategy, they have a couple of ones here for storage. So we're going to be talking about the Autodesk Cloud. We're also going to be focusing a lot of time on Autodesk Buzzsaw. They have mobile apps, which allows me to access this data that I've been placing in the cloud. So they have a program called Autodesk WS. So this basically is AutoCAD online. And it's free, which is a nice thing. So basically, you can actually access any AutoCAD file that you've uploaded up to their cloud service. And then you can view it and in some cases edit it as well. Then you have the Autodesk Design Review. That essentially, if you're not familiar with the Design Review program, is a DWF reviewer and viewer. All of Autodesk software like AutoCAD and Revit, they can export out to a DWF, which essentially is a protected file format. Now, rather than just utilizing a PDF, one of the main benefits of the DWF is that the data, the information that you put inside of your models will still carry over. So even though I'm not actually looking at it in AutoCAD or in Revit, I can still pick an object and I'll understand the properties, the data, the information, and that's the key piece of this. There's other cloud services down there. We're not really going to focus on that today since we're really trying to focus on the collaboration side of it. But they are actually doing other services for rendering, energy modeling, structural analysis, and more as time goes on. Now, as far as the cloud goes, the sharing and viewing, the Autodesk Cloud documents allow me to actually upload pretty much any file I want to that. And if I want to, I can also use the Autodesk Design Review app. Now, there is no RVP editing application out there yet. Right now, there's just the AutoCAD WS. And as long as you're on subscription, you actually have storage up to 3 gigabytes per seat. So Autodesk is still actually working on this. So if you do have feedback, comments, concerns, please let them know, because they do want to make sure that they're giving you the best service for this. Now, in terms of things on the bottom here, collaboration, Autodesk Buzzsaw. That's going to be one of the big things to help us collaborate across different locations, different offices, different setups. And I can actually automate a lot of this. And don't worry, this isn't going to be all PowerPoint. I'm going to be going through different slides, but I am going to switch out into the actual programs to show you some of the examples. So, Cloud Documents. Essentially what this is log into the Autodesk Cloud. You log in as yourself or your office's login, depending on how you've broken it up. And again, you have 3 gigabytes of storage. What this image here is showing you is different folders, different setups, different names that you have on there. And you can organize this and track it however you need to. You can categorize it, so you can actually organize it based on different projects. And if you don't take advantage of other software like Buzzsaw, it doesn't matter. I can still select things and manually tell it I want to upload this document. I would like to download this document. So it's not reliant on any other programs just to take advantage of this. Now, in terms of sharing this, you can send people invites so that they can actually take a look at your files. You can control who has access, who has editable rights, who has the rights to just look at things. And you can also invite others to actually mark up some of your content. So if you actually have a DWF file, they'll be able to open that up, leave their markups on it. And again, since it's a DWF, they're not actually changing content. What they're doing is they're just reviewing it and marking this up. It's then up to you to decide how you deal with those markups. Do you follow them or just say, yeah, well, okay, I don't really agree with that. Now, the nice thing is, if things are actually changed, whether it's by others or by you, the cloud will actually keep track of file versions and see the different updates. I'll be able to see who did what, when they did it. If they put in comments or notes, I can see why they did it. Now, in terms of setting this up, if I actually take advantage of any 3D models, I can actually put that content in there. Again, I mentioned before about the AutoCAD WS. There's no Revit editor online. While there is not a Revit editor, I can actually upload Revit files. And by doing that, I will then actually have the ability to view the information in that. It does take a little while for it to parse it on their side, so I can visualize the information. But you actually can look inside the views that were already created in that model. Now, if you're looking to take advantage of this, the website's right up there, documents.cloud.autodesk.com. And that'll give you the main login so you can actually take a look at that. Now, I am going to hop into this, but I'm going to hop into it after I go over Buzzsaw. And again, if there are any questions, I am keeping an eye on the questions bin. So just type anything in there, and we'll do our best to answer it either as we go through this or at the end. So, Buzzsaw. Now, wall of text here, but essentially, easy way to look at Buzzsaw in some respects is almost like an FTP on steroids. That's how everybody used to describe it. The thing is, Buzzsaw has actually grown. It's not just an FTP site anymore. It's something that you can access from the web. It's something that allows you not just to put a file up there and then download it later on. It's something that you can actually view the content. So in some cases, think of it as a website that has the backbone and strength of an FTP. But it also has the ability to track changes and also view content. So it gives you previews and other information. So it's much more than it used to be. If you only looked at it 4 or 5 years ago, it has grown a good amount. Now, how this would actually work. So you're working in your office, you're managing everything where you are, and what you can actually do is tell this to sync, either on demand or automatically whenever things are changed, to the actual cloud services. In this case, we're talking about Buzzsaw. Now, the great thing about this is it doesn't really matter what you utilize, whether it's just any other computer that has access to the internet, your phone, whether it's Android or Buzzsaw. Windows Mobile will be coming early next year, and Autodesk is developing on all three platforms as far as being mobile platforms. So once I've done that, I can access my content on the go. If you're at a job site and you're looking at something and something seems a little bit off, okay, let me log into Buzzsaw. I'll open up and I'll look at either the views of my Revit model, or I can also download and look at the CAD file on AutoCAD WS. Then I can zoom in, and in some cases, if I'm using AutoCAD for as-built, I can make those changes while I'm on site with my tablet. I don't have to use something like a Citrix solution to remote into another computer. The CAD file is up on the cloud. I'm accessing it and editing it there, and then I can pull it down later on or send it to other people from there. So Buzzsaw, again, works for iOS. So if you're running it from the iPad or the iPhone or the iPod, same thing. You can download it for those, and you can run that. And many of the other ones also work for Android. So if you're looking at how you can actually coordinate this, not a problem. Navisworks can actually aggregate files from Vault. Vault is another program that Autodesk has that helps you synchronize and back up content. Everything that you're doing back and forth to Buzzsaw, that can get pushed out to Vault. And then Navisworks, also Revit, I'm going to show that too, can actually pull that data from Vault so I can get that information that I need. So you're having everybody do their work locally, just like they are already, but I can have things that are automatically pushing that content to the networks, to the cloud. So that way it's accessible by everybody, and it's not the kind of thing where we only update our files once a week. And then by the time we find out that there's been a change, we're 4 days behind. We can actually see what's happening almost automatically. So the mobile apps that they're pushing, BIM this last year or so has been really, really being pushed mostly by the construction industry. Because of this, Autodesk understands that they need to have access to this software. They need to have access more so to the data. And they're not always going to be able to walk around carrying a desktop and a monitor or a really beefy laptop. Sometimes all they actually need is some information. So what they're actually making sure that you can do is access all of this data, or at least as much as you can right now, through a smaller tablet. Whether it's a tough book tablet, so if you drop it off the high-rise, it'll still probably survive, or just a simple iPad or Android that you can just hop on, look at, and explain maybe to your subs what you're trying to show, or what's actually supposed to happen. Because many companies, including Skanska, is actually pushing out tablets to their sites. And it helps coordinate, and it helps communicate the actual design intent. So I'm actually going to hop over to the software for a second. So if I hop over here to Revit. So I'm just in a Revit file that was created in the class. Little cheesy, has a couple of little issues in terms of the roof, but so be it. Now, inside the Revit file, typically what will happen is you'll save your file locally, and you might get a pop-up depending on what you've got plugged in. And I can also save this file to the central. And this will ask me what information is going on with that. Now, if I'm just coordinating with my team locally, no big deal. However, I got this little pop-up in the bottom corner here. That pop-up is a program called Autodesk Bluestreak. So I'm going to go into this a little bit more, but that pop-up is basically letting me know, and also letting anyone else on the project team know, that I just saved my work to the network. So things have been changed, things have been updated. Now, if I want to make sure that my content here is coordinated across, everybody on the team, there's a few things that I can actually do. By me saving here, that saves my file to the network. But what I also have is my Autodesk Buzzsaw sync. What this allows me to do is either say specific folders or files that I want this to be synchronized across the web. I want this to get pushed to the Autodesk Buzzsaw service. And I can tell this to sync on demand, when things are updated, or all the time. So currently, for this project, I have told the folder that it's a part of to be synced manually. And it's really as easy as right-clicking on a folder and saying, set up for Buzzsaw. So if this is something that I really wanted to do, I would just go here and right-click on it. Once that flyout comes out, there we go. Add to Autodesk Buzzsaw sync folder. So that's really it. It's not like you have to go through a large amount of setup. Once I do that, it just asks me to say, okay, log in, so it understands which Buzzsaw sync folder you're putting in, tells it where to actually store it, and you're good. And then it'll actually sync the content in there to a network. There we go. Now, that's the Buzzsaw side of the equation. That's sort of like the cloud storage. Another way for me to do this is to use something up here called Vault. Now, what Vault does is it does tie into Buzzsaw. The two of them sort of work hand in hand for coordinating and also controlling content. What I have here is an add-on for Revit, and this allows me to log in and either load families from Vault. So let's say you're trying to coordinate 3 offices worth of Revit content. You know, if somebody updates it here, I want it to be updated over there. I want everyone to be working off of the same thing. What I could actually have is a Vault server running in each of my offices that are collaborating and coordinating with each other. This makes it so that when I actually do load content from my Vault, it's my office standards. And it's the same office standards that are available across all the places. And I can also say this. I want to add a folder. Files or single file. Similar to the Buzzsaw that I just mentioned, where I right-click and say add this to that, I can add a folder that will be added to and updated to Vault. What that means is that when I go to Vault, it'll automatically say, okay, this is being stored. This is being backed up and archived. In some cases, it's similar to what Newforma does, if you're familiar with that. And then if I want to not take the entire file, all I really care about are my sheets. I'll export just the sheets from my file. That way I can push them to the Vault. They can then be distributed, saved, published, or marked up by everybody else. So I'm coordinating my information across different locations, and I'm collaborating because I'm giving this information to everyone else so that they can actually work off of it or utilize it for their own needs. Now, once I've done with this, if I want to, I can look at Vault, and what I have here is my management here. So I've got my console that tells me what's going on, how many backups have I done, how many vaults I've actually got, how large this is. So if somebody from IT is working on this, they can make sure that things are being done correctly, that things actually are being archived, and that we're not starting to exceed our file size. I can also keep track of who has access to this. Outside of that, I can look at the different folders that I've got on there. So currently this project has my sheets placed in there. I can also see if I have any Revit content like families uploaded. I can also see what files I've placed in here. So I've got an empty folder and I've got 2 Revit files. And then when I click on that, if I have a thumbnail or an image that I've assigned to it, I can do that. I can see how many versions I've placed, how many usages of this there are, where it's been used, who created it. And if there's something in here for me to do a preview, I can do this. But you can see how much information is on the right-hand side that I can start to track and look at. And I can always add more information or modify that information too. Just depends on what I'm actually utilizing this for. So now the Vault the Vault collaboration tools are available for pretty much all the software. You'll get the most out of it currently with DWGs because they've been around the longest. But you're rapidly getting more and more features with Revit. So the plugin up here is something that was released not that long ago. And that allows me to publish my content for others to actually take advantage of. Now, right from here, if I didn't already have that Buzzsaw add-in, I can tell this to share to or update from Buzzsaw. Now, the differences between this is that Vault is technically server-based. So I'm controlling it. I'm managing the content. So if I publish it to here, I have a server running somewhere that Vault is running on. So similar if you have Outlook or Exchange to run your email. You're running that. You might have a webmail that allows you access through the internet. but you are running the Exchange server. Similar idea. So Buzzsaw here is something that I have to manage. If I go out to here, what I'm looking at is my administration console for Buzzsaw. This is the only thing that I'll have that's really installed locally. This allows me to see what projects I'm working on, so I can manage my projects, see who's actually working on them, what files are in them, what the actual timeline or actions are being placed. So I can actually manage a good amount of information here. So I can see the different folders, the different information going on in there. I can actually see who has access to what. So if I'm an administrator, I can actually see what's happening with things. I can actually take advantage and understand the permissions and attributes of everything. But this is something that I work on local, because once I've done that, it actually goes out to the web, and then I manage it through this. Buzzsaw itself is web-based. And Vault is something that I'll access through the internet, but it's actually something that I still have to manage on my own servers. Buzzsaw, I don't. So this currently is showing me my different projects that I've got on there. It shows me the last modified, sizes of them if I ask for it, the owners. In here I can start looking at the different files, the different projects, and I can actually see what's happening inside of here. If I click on one of my files, I can come in here and it'll tell me when it was last updated. I can click on versions and actually see how many versions of this file do I currently have. And this is all cloud-based. Anybody with a phone, anything, could log into this and start seeing this data. And if I want to, I can manually upload this. Or again, what I could always do is just use that Buzzsaw sync tool to do this on my own. So I don't have to tell it, yeah, push that out. I'm ready for everyone else to see this. And while it does take a little while, this can actually process my Revit files that I've uploaded, as well as DWGs and DWS, for viewing, which means that once it actually finishes that, I'll be able to actually click on different views and different information. So that way I can actually look through that 3D model. Can't edit it right now, but what I can actually do is explore that Revit file through the web without installing Revit, without installing any expensive or heavy viewer. I'm just looking at it right through here. No questions so far? Okay. Now, this is a relatively simplistic view of Buzzsaw. I can see either with previews here, once it finishes actually running through that, it's still generating my previews. Or I can see it with the details. I can upload new folders, modify that. Depending on what I'm trying to do, I'll have actually different notifications. So if I want to actually rename this, I can do that after the fact. I can also set notifications so that, let's say somebody updates the file, deletes the file, or anything. I need an email on this. I got to keep track of what's happening, and I'm outside the office. So I can tell it to do things like that. Now, in terms of how Buzzsaw can interact with other programs, we've got the Buzzsaw Mobile that works for the iPhone and the iPad. The Buzzsaw Sync was this tool that I was looking at down here. So that allows me to say that folders are going to actually no longer be synced. I can open them and modify them. And I can always change the sync settings so that they're always doing it. They do it specifically at a certain time, or I have to manually tell it to synchronize. So it gives me a good amount of control. The administration tool was that program that I opened up before that shows me who has access to what. So I can manage as a project manager or as an IT person who can do what, so I can make sure that the wrong people aren't accidentally deleting folders or projects. Now in terms of mobile applications, we've got Buzzsaw Mobile. We have WS and Bluestreak, which I mentioned before, but I'm going to talk about those in a little bit. And then you have other programs created by other companies that have access to the Buzzsaw information. Some of them are by Apple, some of them are by others. But it's not just an Autodesk thing. They're trying to make sure that this is open enough that everyone can get access and actually utilize and work with this information. So I mentioned a couple other programs here, including UpWS and Bluestreak. What this is basically a website. You can upload your own files to this. So if you're using AutoCAD, there actually is a plugin in AutoCAD that will automate the process of pushing that data up there. So if you look here, you can actually see an online ribbon on AutoCAD 2012. There are plugins down here for 2010 and 11 if you're utilizing them. But what this allows me to do is upload multiple files or single files, manage them, put messages on them, and also see what files are online. Once I've got these files online, I can then open them in AutoCAD WS. Now, what this allows me to do is essentially have a version of AutoCAD that I never have to install. I'm running this through a web browser right now, but I can also run this again on like an iPad or an Android tablet. And again, when the new Windows 8 comes out next year for their tablets and phones, this will be ready for that as well. But I can look at this in model space. I can change that to paper space, plans, sections. I can select objects. I can move things, draw things, annotate. It's still all 2D. You're not going to be doing anything with 3D AutoCAD right now. But this gives me multiple features that if I'm in the site or I'm going to the field and I want to be able to utilize some things or make a couple of changes, I can do that. And they're consistently updating this. They just recently added the ability to do more with hatching and also added the command line if you prefer to type in your comments. So they're giving me more and more ways for me to actually interact with people that are actually on site or off the normal network for my work. So I can get a lot of work done still with people who may not be around. So still, I'm utilizing something like Vault or Buzzsaw to manage my data. So that controls it. That's sort of like where everything goes, and then from that point, it gets parsed or sent out so that I can understand who has access to it, and I can get it from anywhere. So this is AutoCAD WS, really quick. And if you just want to log in, they actually have a couple of files here you can open up, so you don't have to load anything up. Then I can start playing around with this and redrawing things and modifying things. Now, the other program I mentioned was Bluestreak. If I'm working with everybody in a small office, if I have a question, I can pretty much just lean over and say, hey, what about this? Or, just so you know, I've modified that. But if I'm working with people in multiple offices, and maybe our network or infrastructure does not allow any internet communicators, what Bluestreak does is it's sort of a mixture of like a Twitter feed and also a method of communication. Every time I save my file, this actually has an activity feed of it. So whoever I allowed access to will then have the ability to actually save their content and then say, okay, I've saved this, and just so everybody knows, I gave up control over this. Or just so everybody knows, I fixed this issue or changed this object. So it's a method for me to actually communicate with everyone else on my team what's happening. So if they need to know what's going on across the network. It doesn't have to be in my office. I could be allowing people from my, my consultants access to this if we're really trying to collaborate on a project. And the nice thing is, as a project manager, you have control of who gets invited to this feed. I can't just invite all my friends so I can talk to them or chat with them on this. You only let the people on this that you want on this. And it's a single point of contact as far as an administrator who controls your group activities. And I can break this out by the project as well. This project has these 10 people, that project has those 15, this one has a little bit of both of them. So that way it's not a, these are all the people that are on everything. I can start to piecemeal. But this is either web-based, or it also has a small desktop application and I can actually put comments in this. So if I actually say this, that gets posted to the network. So the next time that anyone's looking at this, they're actually going to end up seeing that the last save prior to design option 3 accepted. So they'll understand, okay, the next save I do after that, we're going to be getting rid of our design options. So these are the different things that I can actually put in there. So that posts that note. The last save is there. I have a little pop-up down here, which is exactly what everyone else in the team would see. And then if somebody doesn't want to have or can't install that desktop application, if they're looking at it online, they'll be able to see this. Me as a project manager, I can just keep an eye on this and just see, okay, well, is everyone saving their work? Is everyone actually coordinating with the rest of the team? Or is one person opening it up in the morning and saving it at night and then causing problems for everybody else? And with this program that allows me to coordinate across the team what's happening, where things are going out, there actually is a Blue Streak mobile application for this. So that way I can actually access this kind of data across the network. Again, I don't have to be on a desktop or a laptop to utilize it. It is web-based. So these are just a couple of the different programs that I have access to that I can actually do different things with. Go. So again, I'm going to hop back into the PowerPoint, go over the Design Review app. Since I don't actually have an iPad on me right now, this essentially means that if you're looking at a DWF, again, DWF could be 2D or 3D, and I can actually view them through Buzzsaw as well. But this allows me to actually review the content. Rather than just looking at it, I can mark things up. So if I'm on an iPad or an iPhone, I can look at that. I can select on an object and I can actually see, okay, well, what kind of element is this? What's the number of that door? And all free. So if you go to the App Store for that, you can look for Autodesk and find the software that they've actually put up there so that their users can actually get more out of the software that they're already working with. Then the information on AutoCAD WS. So you can modify and manage things on your tablets. It is fully integrated with AutoCAD 2012, but there were those plugins when you go to the website for 2010 and 11. So just because you're not on a new version does not mean you can't take advantage of this. And again, all based off the cloud. You're only having to do something once. It's not like I emailed you the file, and then the file that you have and the file that I have are two completely different ones. By placing it in a central location, this time it's the Internet, all of us are working off of the same content. We're collaborating on things. We're not saying, well, who has the latest version? Oh, yeah, but you edited the right side, I edited the left side, so now we got to figure out how to put this together. No, we're working on the same file, the same content, and we're actually getting things done faster and more consistently. So a couple more images on how this works. Again, real-time collaboration. You are working on that file. And if you're on Android, same thing. Go to their App Store. You can download it from there. Still free. Are there any questions from anybody? Yep. Okay, question we got was, can two users work on the file at the same time? To a certain degree, yes. It's not like Revit where you have work sharing, and there is no app for that yet, for Revit, so that you can actually do that. The thing I mentioned before with Buzzsaw is you're viewing the previews, so you're looking at views that already existed. In that case, yeah, multiple people can look at that. But for the AutoCAD WS, go back one. Yep. So when you're looking at this, the real-time collaboration, you are having other people editing at the same time. So it's tracking who's doing what, so that way you don't have two people trying to edit the same line or the same object. That's not to say two people aren't going to draw the same thing at the same time. But it does allow multiple people to be editing it at the same time together.
Okay, great question. Doesn't look like there's any other ones, Peter. But if any of you do think of questions, if you want to pull up that slide again, Peter has your contact information. Mm-hmm. You can email Peter directly at petermarchese@microdesk.com, or you can email us at webinars@microdesk.com. So that's webinars@microdesk.com. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you, Peter, and thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. We hope you found this helpful and educational. On the next slide, you'll find links to more information on any of the authorized training classes that we offer, 12 locations nationwide. So please do browse our course catalog and see if any of these are a fit for you. You'll find a lot of information on training and consulting solutions. On the next page, you'll also find more information on free webinars every Friday. We do this as a service to you. You can browse our education and consulting services. You can sign up for our news. You can contact us at the number below. Again, I want to thank everyone for your time today. Have a great weekend, and we hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.